the goal of the governor to go green, and at that point in time, we would be able to start putting our plan together to execute getting back kind of basically fully operational. The only challenge that we were waiting to hear from was
We are now on air.
what will be the expectations.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular open meeting of the United Laguna Woods Mutual Board of Directors of California Nonprofit Mutual Benefit Corporation. It is Tuesday, May 11, 2021. It's 9:30 a.m. and it's a virtual meeting. We have a quorum, and I'd like to thank the media for putting this on Grannis and television. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda with one change, that we make 11C 12C because it is a new resolution. Can I have a motion to that effect?
I so move. We approve the agenda.
Thank you. Andre, is yours a second?
No. Well, no. I want to since you are in the adding the agenda stage already, I want to clear up in the 13E landscape presentation. I would like to present some landscape performance measurement KPIs that I've collected so far.
Could you hold that for the director's comments, please?
No, I would like to share that with landscape, because that's the landscape committee result. That should be in that instead of
okay. We'll discuss. We'll allow you to do that at landscape.
Okay, I will share this. I will send a spreadsheet to.
That's enough. We're done with that. Let's go ahead now. Is there anybody that objects to the agenda?
Madam Chair.
Sure.
Madam President, I don't object. I just have a question. We received the addendum. Okay, so we're working with the addendum right now. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I just want to make sure so everybody's on the same page. We received the addendum yesterday. So that's what we're talking about right now, the addendum.
Yes.
Thank you.
If there's nobody that objects to the minutes, they are now approved. Okay. Please put your hands down and please use the chat bot because it gives me a time so I can keep people in order. Thank you. And do not interrupt the speaker. We are going to go ahead and time everybody so that the speakers do not. Cash, you had your hand up. Was there something you wanted to add before we go on?
I'm having some technical problems here, so.
Well, we heard you loud and clear now, so.
Thank you.
Let me know in the chat box if you have technical comments. Okay, so we're on to the report of the chair. Every so often we get comments about finance or money management. Well, part of the oversight is United Board's responsibility. Perhaps it's not apparent because it occurs behind the scenes. And I want to emphasize that this board does take its fiduciary responsibilities seriously. 2 directors sign off on every check out of the reserve. 2 directors reconcile the checks from operating funds. And 3 directors sign off on the resale packages. Also, there's a review made on the subleasing and transfer of trust documents every month. United is doing a thorough job of reviewing the finances. United has a separate account for reserve and operating so the directors can closely watch the expenditures. And starting next month, the finance director will be making available for our review the payroll expenditures from reserve. With that, we will be in full compliance with the Davis-Sterling Act. Now, let me say we have confirmed that we have over $20 million in the reserve, whereas we're only required to have 10.5. Each year, there is an external audit of the books at the end of the year. This year, it was done by KPMG, one of the major auditing firms in this country. There were no errors reported. United had a clean audit. Speaking of finance, I'd like to bring up another meeting. During United's closed session, the board looks very closely at the delinquency report and actively seeks resolution of every arrears. For those who are behind in payments, the board is willing to set up new payment schedules and tries to assist in any way it can. We try to be empathetic, but United is not a charity, and our main source of income is the assessments. Every effort is made to collect in a timely fashion. Each month, our Finance Committee has a thorough review of the finances in the Finance Committee. They welcome any resident who attended. Another reason to look at the finance report is see where United spends its money. There have been sporadic complaints about some residents who say, I pay outrageous assessments and receive nothing for it. The assessments pay your water bill, pays for your garbage pickup, gets your lawn mowed, and makes repairs to your unit. If you have a maintenance problem, you need dial just one number. You have no need to search for a plumber, electrician, appliance repair person, a roofer. No matter when I go on vacation, I know I can call resident service and they will come and repair the damage. So please take a look at what you're getting. Thank you. Okay, we have the open forum. Elise, would you go ahead and read the two letters that you have?
Elise, we can't hear you.
Well, while she's doing that,
My apologies. I'm sorry. Good morning.
Wait a second. I need to take care of what I forgot to do, and Carl kindly reminded me. We need to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any edit changes that need to be done to them? If not, I'll assume the minutes were approved. Thank you. Thank you, Elise. Go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Our first letter comes from Helen Edelstein of 712C, and she writes, Dear Mr. Jeff Parker, we recently celebrated Earth Day, and it reminded me of a project I suggested several years ago. Many products that we use in our laundry rooms are contained in plastic, paper, and cardboard packages. A recycle container, appropriately labeled, could be placed in each laundry room. When this building is cleaned, the recyclables could be placed in a recycle bin. Please consider this idea to help Laguna Woods Village ecological efforts. Thank you, Helen Edelstein. P.S. You provided a terrific vaccination program. We are all appreciative. Our second comment comes from John Beckett of 364Q. United's operating fund is out of cash. Last month, we owed $6 million in property taxes, but we had only $4 million in our operating fund. For the past few years, our managing agent, VMS, has been borrowing money from United's reserve fund without the board's authorization, which violates the Davis-Sterling Act. Last month, VMS borrowed $2 million from our reserve fund in order to pay the property taxes. VMS is promising to restore the $2 million to the reserve fund in July. Meanwhile, VMS wants to borrow even more money from United's reserve fund, millions of dollars more. Before lending money, a smart lender will ask several questions. Number one, who is promising to repay the loan? Village Management Services is promising to repay the loan, but VMS has no income and no assets. The money they manage belongs to United. Number two, is VMS trustworthy? In 2017, VMS transferred $4 million from one of the Golden Rain Foundation's reserve funds, the Trust Facilities Fee Fund. In 2020, VMS transferred another $6 million from the same reserve fund. How much of the $10 million has VMS repaid? Not one penny. Number three, what if the borrower defaults? If the borrowed money isn't repaid within 1 year, the board is required to levy a special assessment to recover the full amount. The balance in United's operating account is minus $4 million. Where will you, our directors, get the money to repay these huge debts? You'll have you'll have to get it from us, the homeowners. We have never paid a special assessment, and we don't want to start now. Please tell VMS to stop borrowing money from our reserve fund. VMS is predicting that negative cash balances will occur every April for years to come. I believe we can eliminate those negative balances. Here are my suggestions. First, direct management to deposit the members' property tax contributions in a restricted bank account. Second, instruct management that the money in the restricted account is to be spent for property taxes only. Last year, United was obligated to pay $12 million in property taxes. VMS collected $12 million in property tax contributions from the members of United. If VMS had deposited the $12 million in a restricted bank account, VMS wouldn't have needed to borrow money from United's reserve fund. Yours truly, John Beckett. And that concludes the comments.
Jeff, do you want to recap this, or go ahead, Jeff? Certainly.
To the chair and members of the board and to our residents out there, I would like to reply. Mr. Beckett had sent not only this letter, but also a letter to the Globe, and we responded. I responded to in the corresponding Globe the following week with regards to a response. He is correct, and I want to make sure everybody understands. He is correct that we do move money from the reserve into the operating to cover if there is a shortfall in the operating fund in order to pay. In the most important one, and twice a year, we have property tax bills. So for everybody that understands property tax, we collect equal amount assessments every month. Our assessments aren't, your assessments in United aren't high 1 month, low 1 month, high one, like that. They're evenly spaced out over the 12 months of the year. As a result of that, the amount of money that gets collected in January, February, March, and April, those 4 months, is 4 months of property tax, but you owe 6 months in April. So you're in the rears, and that comes out of the operating fund. So we move money from the reserve fund into the operating fund, and then when we collect May and June and July, that money is then repaid back to the reserve fund. So that is a process, and the only resolution to that process is ultimately at some point in time, if the board wanted to create like a sinking fund or a contingency fund where the money went into that fund and went back into the operating, then you wouldn't have to borrow from your reserves. You would just be taking out of your contingency fund. That is something that we've been looking at. That is something that we will certainly have more dialogue with the board on, whether they wanted to look at it that way to handle the property tax as opposed to borrowing from the reserves. On your agenda today, a very important item is that you noted 11C, now 12C. I believe you've moved it to 12. And that will address all of the parameters and the legalities with regards to the process that's necessary, the resolution that's necessary, and the following of the Davis-Sterling Act with regards to moving money in from reserves into operating in order to pay what we'll call this borrowing that we did in order to meet your obligations under your operating fund to pay property tax. If you didn't have that upfront payment, then you probably wouldn't see a need for, with regards to property tax borrowing at all. There are sometimes with regards to payroll expenditures or certain expenditures that the operating fund has less money than what has been brought in by assessments. That's the other time in which you would need to or look at borrowing. But the main occasion is with regards to property tax. The other one I wanted to mention, Mr. Beckett brought it up a couple of times, is this $10 million. We went back and looked. The only $10 million that we're aware of, and I mentioned it in the letter, was that GRF borrowed $10 million in 2013-2014 timeframe that they were going to look at with regards to expansion of some facilities, and that the GRF board reversed its position on that. That $10 million came in and went out in the very next year and was paid back to the bank And so there is no $10 million that was borrowed by United specifically. So I don't know what Mr. Beckett is referencing that. We've asked him to come forward with any information that he wants to provide. The only $10 million that I'm aware of is the GRF $10 million one-time loan. If there are other times, they are smaller in number. As you will see in the staff report, what's being recommended for the borrowing that we would have done this last April. And then, of course, potentially we have the same borrowing in December if we run into that same kind of protocol with regards to property tax. The good news there is that in the December activity, you have a longer time period with regards to late penalties on property tax. So there's more flexibility to collect all of the assessments necessary to pay the December payment, which really is due in November, but they gave you all the way to December 10th to pay it, which allows us to collect both November and December's assessments from our residents. And again, with regards to, is there a way to set up an account that would not require us to move money from reserves into operating to address the property tax? I think there possibly is, and we are putting together a game plan, and we'll take that back to your finance committee and then ultimately to the board if they want to move in that direction. With regards to the recycling, the lady mentioned, we'll take a look at that from and have staff and general services and our maintenance group and everybody take a look at whether or not we can do that in coordination with our contract that we have with regards to trash pickup. So we'll take a look at that and get back to her.
Okay, I'm not going to ask Manny or Andre to speak now. You will be able to speak it when we get to 12C, because it's the same topic, and we'll allow you to speak at that time. I don't want to take the time now. Diane, would you go over the response to the open forum speakers, please?
You're saying me?
Yes.
Me? Okay. Well, I'd say both speakers.
No. Last month that you got the email from Siobhan. Did you get the email?
I don't recall. When did it come in?
It came in yesterday. Okay, I'll go ahead then.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. We had a speaker last month that was wanted to look at the method we have for when you lose your stock certificate, and we have not figured out, but he was complaining that we require a bond. At this time, we're still reviewing what the effect of the bond is, and we will be we will answer this next month. We haven't had a full review of it as yet, and we will be taking it up. So this will be put off till next month. Okay, number 8, Director Khan. Norm, are you here?
He's muted.
You're muted, Norm. Please turn your sound on. You're talking away without us hearing you, Norm. Grant, can you unmute him?
I have sent the request to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, finally.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Madam President, and hello to all attending today. I've been asked to report on various key performance indicators or KPIs that relate mostly to United Mutual, but also to the village. The list was sent to me by Catherine Lasser, updated for me by the respective department directors. All of the following KPIs had a resolved target date of not beyond August 31st. First on my list is the good news about the ongoing remodel status of the Performing Arts Center. I'm very pleased to report it's scheduled to be completed and reopened in mid-September with a new, fresh look and many, many upgrades. I know everyone is waiting for the shows, films, plays, and more to roll again, including yours truly. Regarding the United Asbestos issues and requirements pursuant to the AQMD and COLOSHA, discussions are on target to meet the May 31st response schedule. And from what I understand, it'll be very informative. The next item on the KPI list is the hiring status of an administrative support person, which would be for additional maintenance and construction, plus energy committee meetings. Ernesto, the director of MNC, stated the position is still open and we are actively recruiting for a candidate in a difficult and very competitive labor market. Also in progress and on target for July 1st is the evaluation of the need versus cost of adding a director or staff engineer who will also be responsible for maintaining the Green Book, which of course is the finance guide run by MNC. Ernesto has concluded the position is currently an unnecessary additional expense for his department, but the board, as he says, or CEO may have other ideas. Therefore, this is pending. Another item that was requested was the professional development training for key staff members, which was slated to begin June 1st. I'm pleased to report that it's currently being taken by all MNC staff, and this will continue on an ongoing basis. It probably will expand to other units. On other critical KPI staffing matters, I've been told that we are now fully staffed in alterations and variances, and also fill the facility engineer position. So, with the lifting of more COVID-19 rules, the village is gearing up for its return to prior levels of service and entertainment. This concludes my key performance indicator report on KPIs, and I would like now to welcome Chuck Holland, who will add to the report. Take it away, Chuck.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. I appreciate that. I think what we want to do is get Grant to share a presentation that I'd like to go over with you very briefly to kind of give you an idea where we're going to be at as far as our malware event that we had last year, and what we're doing to not just to recover from the malware event, but what are we going to do to protect the community in the future. So, Grant, could you share that presentation with us? It should be in your email box. There we go. All right. So this is inside your package here. You'll get a copy of the entire slide deck. There's about 12 slides, but because of the sake of time, we're just going to go over a few. I'm just going to kind of briefly go over a summary and then kind of give you some an analogy of the situation and where we're going in the future. So with that being said, the malware recovery, we know October last year we were hit with a pretty significant malware attack. As you know, it's happening all over the country right now. In particular, the most recent one is the Colonial Pipeline on the east coast of the U.S. It's a tragedy. We're only really focused here on our little slice of the world here at the village and how we're going to do to recover that. Basically, just in a high-level overview, the type of attack was really through a email phishing scheme. Essentially what they do is they send out thousands and thousands of emails in the hope that an employee or a staff member double clicks on an attachment. Inside that attachment, there is a macro-enabled Excel spreadsheet that launched a macro and spread this virus all over the company. Basically, that's how it is. That's what it. In a nutshell, that's what it was. This thing came in through email. From a recovery status, I'm thinking we're about 90% recovered. The good news is we didn't lose any data. The bad news is some of the systems that we had that some of our users use to get access to that data, they still need to be, they're still in the process of being repaired. We have them all identified. They're all in a pipeline to be repaired, and hopefully by the end of May, we're going to knock them all out. Some of the items that we're really focusing on is cost collection, damage restoration, resales inspections, and also our energy management system. Those are the 4 biggies that we're working on to finish up the recovery process. Lessons learned, obviously there's a lot of lessons learned through the malware event. For me, the biggest lessons learned is the priority of the recovery steps. For me, it was always about, first thing to recover was the communication, right? You got to get your email up and running, you got to get your phone system up and running, you got to get your call center up and running. The next thing we focused on was all of our financial systems, then our work order systems, then our forward-facing resident systems. So that's the path that we took to recover these systems. You can't do it because of the sheer magnitude and number of systems that we have, both in diversity and just different disciplines. You can't do it all at one time. So we learned a lot of lessons there on what is the most important for the organization. So a lot of great lessons learned. As far as your recommendations, on the very next day, we have an incident response team that came in and helped us mitigate this, the malware attack. We brought in law enforcement. We brought in an incident response team to help us recover from the process. And once they wrapped up their work, they gave us some recommendations, both tactical recommendations, things that we could do immediately to help secure our environment, and also gave us some strategic future plans, what we can do in the future to help prevent a future attack, and if there ever is a future attack, what we can do to mitigate it, to minimize the impact by segregating out the business units onto their own separate networks. And then prevention, and that's kind of what we want to talk a little bit about today. What are we doing to prevent the future attacks? We're pretty fortunate. We work with, as part of the 30-year capital plan, we had funding in 2022 for network security appliances, network security equipment. We worked with GRF. They went ahead and released those funds for 2021. We're in the process of using those funds to just redo everything we did on our network here. New firewalls, new switches, new appliances, new software, you name it. We're about 50% through that process now, and we're hoping by mid-June, all of that additional network security components will be in place. But I know that's a lot of words. So I want to kind of go over a few, just kind of a picture, give you an analogy. I think it was pretty popular with some of the other committees that we have presented to. Can you go to the next screen? And go to the next screen right here. Kind of an analogy of how of the attack. This is a kind of a simplified overview. It was like, what happened? Okay, pretend this house is our network, right? We did a really good job of locking the front door, locking the windows, making sure it was properly lighted. We had a lot of cameras, a lot of auditing tools, everything as much as we possibly could, secured the whole environment as best we could. Again, we always thought that our attack would come through a website or come through an application that got hacked. But really, in a nutshell, is really how the attack came in. If you go to the next slide. What we didn't do here, that's not what I'm expecting. Is there another slide? Well, that's odd. It's missing a slide. What we really didn't do a good job of is really protecting the mailbox, right? The mail, it doesn't matter. And what we did is in order to keep business going, making sure we're all being as efficient as we possibly can, we continue to allow older style Microsoft Office documents to come in through our email, and those older document formats have vulnerabilities. And that's really basically the simplest you can get it. Unfortunately, this particular virus that we had, it came in through a macro on an Excel spreadsheet, and when it executed its malicious code, it didn't run the code on the local computer. It ran the code from the internet. Once it ran the code from the internet, it loaded the virus into memory. And once it was in memory, it just went like wildfire, and it spread throughout the whole entire organization. In real simple terms, is like all of our PCs and servers and phones are all on one large network. And so there was no barrier between those networks. So once the virus got into one PC, then it got into another PC, and then to the servers. So take a look at it as an analogy for this house. What we did is we locked all the windows and doors, but what we didn't do is inside the home, we didn't lock all the cupboards, we didn't lock all the individual bedroom doors. So once the virus got into the network, it went all over the place. With the new technology that we're bringing into place, with the funding that was approved, now what we're doing is we're separating all of the network out, right? PCs are on one network, phones are on a separate network, servers are on a different network. We're utilizing the cloud. We're backing up to the cloud instead of backing up on premises. And so that's what we're trying to do. That way, if a virus ever gets into the community again, and if it hits one particular area, we can try isolating that one area without the rest of the organization getting attacked. So that's what the capital approval that was moved from 2022 to 2021 is going to solve for us. I know there's a lot of techno jargon, a lot of fancy buzzwords I can get for you, but basically what we're doing is we're segregating every single business unit that we have to prevent and mitigate any future attacks. There's several more slides here, but I don't really have the time, but that's just the general gist of it. I would be more than happy to spend any time in your closed session and or at any other time meeting with our team here to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much. I just wanted everybody to have a view of what's going on and how hard it was to get this going. I appreciate your talk, Chuck.
Thank you.
Andre, go ahead, please.
Yes, I have two questions on this malware issue.
We're not here to question.
No, just a quick. I just want a quick answer. I'm not going to get into the details. My question is: do we have a backup and restore SOP at this point established? And because we have new systems all the time, installing new systems and making changes all the time, do we have a periodic update of the SOPs, when to do what, who's going to do what, rather than when things happen, which is everybody screaming, yelling? And also, do we plan to have a test run, maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter, maybe once a half a year, to make sure everything's still in sync? Those are the procedures I've had with other companies, but I've never seen it here with BMS. And
okay, he'll answer your questions now. Thank you.
Also, I have another.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, sorry, this is Chuck. So the most important the question that Andre had here is the recovery. Are you testing out your recovery? It's easy enough to back up your data, but can you get it recovered? And that's absolutely what we've been doing. We've been testing that on several different occasions here, and particularly for our financial system, Microsoft AX, as well as our work order system, Stellar. Both those systems are now in the cloud. They're being backed up in a way that they're called immutable backups, meaning that they cannot be tampered with. And yes, we have recovered those systems on several different occasions. Right now we're working on some SOP documentation. We definitely need to keep that updated and review those documents with our technology advisory committee we're putting together. So we got a lot more work to do on our SOPs, a lot more work to do on getting them updated, and then and presenting that to our committee.
Thank you. I think
I'm just curious. There's a technology advisory committee at this point.
You are on it, Andre.
I'm on it. I haven't received.
Point of order. He said one question and he goes on.
I have said two questions.
Thank you. We're done. Both of you, we're done. Bye-bye, Chuck. Bye-bye. All right, we're moving.
President Margolis, we do have a resident who wishes to comment.
Right, that's what I was getting to. Okay, thank you. Have you promoted them so they can speak, please?
Yes. I will move them now.
Thank you. Andre, feel free to call Chuck to write up your questions, and we will be.
This is not related to Chuck. This is related to Khan, the VMS report.
Okay. Right now, we're going to go back to open forum for a minute, and we'll see. Thank you. We'll see what we can do. I'd like to keep moving through this because we've got a lot to cover yet.
This is a relate to accounts report. I haven't got a chance to talk about it yet.
Okay, Andre, I hear you, which I will get to you when I can. Thank you.
So I'm not allowed to ask a question now?
We are going back to 6 right now at this moment because we have another person on the line that wanted to speak.
Mr. Houston, I do see that your mic is unmuted. Are you able to speak?
Yes, I was waiting to be called. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Houston.
Good morning. My name is Richard Houston. I reside at 162B. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. All of you should have already received the notes I emailed to you yesterday afternoon. Those provide the background to the current situation in my manor. Here is my summary of this situation. United Laguna Woods Mutual, and from here on I'll just say United, owns the building in which my manor is located. And United is responsible for the structure, plumbing, electrical supply, grounds, etc. The situation I'm dealing with resulted from a defect in United's property, namely the drain pipe servicing this side of the building. According to the master plumber who first responded, that defective pipe began leaking some time ago. Because of this leak, water infiltrated into the common wall between the two manors, mine and the adjacent manor. The infiltration also may have affected the wall under my kitchen sink. We're not clear whether that's the case or not. I understand that this common wall between the manors is also property belonging to United. United said they must remediate the damage to their property, which includes the common wall between the two manors, the damage caused by their defective plumbing, the leaking drain pipe. To accomplish this remediation, United tells me they need to remove some of my property, mainly the lower cabinets, the granite countertops, and the backsplash in my kitchen, which are attached to or butt up against this common wall. In addition, United also said that the cost of restoring my cabinets, countertop, and backsplash will not be their responsibility, financial or otherwise. So to summarize, in order to mitigate and repair the damage to United's property caused by a defect in United's property, United wants to damage my property, but does not feel obligated to bear any cost to make my property whole, as it would have been were United's property not defective. This seems patently unfair to me. For example, if my car's brakes fail, resulting in a collision with another car, I am financially responsible not only for the damage to my car, but also for the damage to the other car. So I'm appealing to you to reconsider United's position and accept the financial responsibility for any damage to my property resulting from United's repairs to their property, which in turn resulted from a defect in United's property. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any clarification you may wish, and I want to thank you for listening. I look forward to your response so that we can resolve the situation as expeditiously as possible.
Okay. Jeff, do you want to respond or?
I can. To the chair and the board, the individual has submitted several pieces of information with regards to what he spoke about. And Dan Yost from our department has spoken to him with regards to how the insurance works and how the process works. So the one issue at hand that he references that he has an alteration in his unit, and the language under our policy is the alterations that has occurred is not something that we would financially cover, that it would be up to his insurance to. So that's the reason why Dan Yost was asked to contact him specifically was for him to understand how his insurance would relate to this, and also potentially the impact by the access issue that we had with regards to getting in and repairing it, which was delayed, unfortunately, by the neighbor, and therefore potentially caused a greater leak than had we been able to get in when we first wanted to. So that could be a liability on the neighbor. So it's potentially going to impact both units, not just his unit, but also the neighbor's unit with regards to the insurance and how it's going to be paid for. But we are on top of it and we are working on it, and I'll be able to provide some additional information to the board this afternoon.
Okay, Manuel, did you want to speak to this? You're muted.
Yes, I did. Jeff is correct. What I was going to suggest to the member was that hopefully he has an HO6 policy, and he should report the loss and damage to his insurance company. And one misinterpretation that often happens is that if the loss was a result of something faulty on the part of the mutual, like a leaking pipe, they are responsible to restore your property back to its original condition. But if you have an upgrade, then you're responsible for the portion of restoring it that is the upgrade. So again, the insurance companies have to work together to see who's going to cover what part of the cost. So I agree with that recommendation of the member that he go to his insurance company. Hopefully he has an HO6 policy and then work it out. But he is entitled to a certain amount of recovery of costs to his property that's strictly related to restore back to its original condition. Thank you.
Diane?
Yeah, I agree also. I mean, I lived in a HOA in Laguna Niguel, and there was a water leak, which the HOA pays a certain portion, and then to redo my flooring and whatever else I had to do, my HOA policy went in on that.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else, anybody, or Azar?
Yes, thank you. I think that could you please respond to that analogy that this person explained? For example, if my car is happened to be in an accident in another car, and it's my fault, not only I pay for myself, I pay for my other car. As I understand, maybe I got it wrong, this damage happened by the leak, and its responsibility is for us, for VMS or United to repair that one.
Azar, we are only responsible for our part of it. It's just like with the car, the insurance would have to pay for the other part of it, and he needs to have insurance to take care of it. That's the way it works. It's the same analogy. You need car insurance to take care of these things. Thank you. Okay. All right. Norm, Andre has maybe one question, Andre. We're running out of time, so you get one question only.
Yeah, one question. Norm, you mentioned that the MSC has provided staff training. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, we don't just give them training and not get any money back from the expense we pay for their training. I made a recommendation and a full explanation as far as how to do the training, find self-motivators, give them the training, give them the project, prepare them, and help them make it a success. I'm not sure if Jeff has shared with the VMS board or anybody else, the VMS staff. What I'm recommending is when we send people to training, we don't cut costs, so we don't save money on that. We spend money on them, and we want them to write up a project plan that once they took the training, come back, we will provide them an opportunity to make it happen, to learn something new, the best practice in the industry, and so upgrade our business practice here. is that considered in the whole project plan?
I don't think Norm can answer that. I'm sorry. That is not a question Norm can answer.
He can answer no, and he will bring it to the attention of the VMS board.
Okay. Norm, go ahead and say no and bring it to the attention of the VMS board.
Please don't coach them.
Well, you just coach them.
I didn't want to coach them. I said that's one possibility. Okay. So what do we get back?
Point of order. Point of order. Come on.
Point of order. You always
let Norm speak, please. Go ahead, Norm.
Yeah, Andre, I'm not familiar with what you sent to Jim. I was not made aware of that. I only know what I was told yesterday in preparation for this meeting. I would suggest you follow up with Jim and see what, if anything, has been done. I don't recall it being brought up at the VMS board at the last meeting, but I wasn't at the last meeting. I was on vacation in Europe. So I can't answer your question. I suggest you contact Jim.
Okay.
Jeff or Jim?
All right, Andre, we're done.
I don't know who to contact. Jeff
has heard you a number of times on this. Thank you.
Jeff
Cash, go ahead. Andre, you're done. Thank you. Cash. Cash, do you want to speak?
Yeah, well, some people are raising hands when we're supposed to go in the chat box, so I don't know which way to turn. That's it. Let's make one rule and stick with it.
I'm trying to do both, and I'm not doing very well. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to the CEO report. Thank you. Jeff, you're on.
Thank you, President Margolis, and to the board and to the residents. I have a couple updates with regards to COVID, and then I have a couple updates with regards to administration here. On the COVID numbers, as I mentioned earlier, that things have gone in the right direction with regards to COVID numbers in Orange County in particular. We've seen a pretty dramatic reduction in hospitalizations and ICUs. Hospitalizations in Orange County are now at a low of 80 hospitalizations, with 20 of those being ICUs. So that's one of the lowest numbers we've seen since the pandemic started last year. So that's really good news. There were no reported deaths in Orange County yesterday. So again, on tracking on and the number of cases reported in yesterday's report was only 46 cases of COVID in all of Orange County. Again, drastically reducing in a good trend. We were in the hundreds, we were in the multi-hundreds, and it kept trending downward. And as a result of that, we are, like I said, moving towards the yellow tier. And there, in fact, expectation of announcement today that Orange County will go into the yellow tier next. With that, we're in, clearly as of yesterday, we were in the yellow tier with regards to 2 of the major categories, and we were real close on the 3rd category. That, along with the COVID shots that are being distributed throughout Orange County and the low case rate, I think all leads us in that direction of going to the yellow. Once we go into yellow, what that will do is in some of our activities, we will able to double the capacity from 25% to 50%. And that will, such as our indoor gym over at Clubhouse 1, where we were very limited in our indoor capacity, we'll be able to double that. Same thing with regards to our woodworking or ceramics, where we were limited to 11 people in there. Even though we had capacity for more, we'll be able to double up on that capacity. So that's going to be a real positive for us. On that same note, we are, with regards to Laguna Woods, which again, Laguna Woods is the city of Laguna Woods, but the village certainly is a great part of that. Our numbers are at 413 cases since we've been recording this, and we've had 50 deaths recorded for the city of Laguna Woods. That is up a little bit from a month ago when I reported to you at the board, but just a slight increase from 409 to 413. So over a month, just seeing 4 additional cases is really well. We've concluded all of the major vaccination clinics here. We just have the very last one, which will be the follow-up second shot from those that received it a month ago. That's coming up in a week from now, and we'll be concluding all of our vaccinations at that point in time. Again, the county has expanded all of their vaccinations. So if there is a zip code that you can go on. Last time I checked, we were over for Orange, for that, our zip code that includes Laguna Woods, we were over at 75% people who have been vaccinated. So that's a tremendous number and great for the village that we've been able to vaccinate as many people as we were. And again, a shout out to Memorial Care and certainly Eileen and our staff here that did a great job of coordinating that. And thank you to the boards for that support. I did want to again mention that what does this mean going forward? Obviously, the first baby step, next baby step is the yellow, where we'll be able to increase our capacity. But the real one that we're got the eye on the prize is in the governor's proposal to hit the green area, which would mean back to no more tiers, no more structure with regards to how many limitations you have on capacity. There may still be recommendations and requirements with regards to wearing masks indoors of facilities, because that comes out of the CDC and the state and the county working together. Right now, you can, if you're vaccinated and you're in a group of vaccinated people, you can go outside and not wear a mask. So that's not included indoors, though, at this point in time. But I think once we go to the green, I think we'll be looking at different regulations and different requirements, and we'll be ready to put that in place. And again, our proposal here and our method here is we're following the state guidelines and the county guidelines and implementing what we're going to implement here with regards to usage. We are in the process and have been in the process of gearing up for a reopening, including hiring staff, part-time recreation staff. We had a discussion about that yesterday and how we can accelerate that. So we're moving in that direction, as well as communicating with all of the clubs as to what activities they're going to want to do, what scenario they're going to be in, and whether or not they need the capacity or what rooms they're going to be needing in the future. So we're meeting with club presidents. We're having that dialogue with the survey to make sure that come July, assuming that late June or mid-June, we get the go-ahead, then we can really gear up and start having our clubhouses back open and all of our activities running like basically what we did before the COVID hit us as hard as it did, and with covering obviously the regulations that are still going to be in place. So we do have a plan. Hopefully we'll continue on TV6 to mention what we're progressing in, and as we get closer to going into the yellow and then get closer to the June timeframe for the governor's notice, then we're going to be gearing up for what we can do here at the village to get this place open and reopened and get our clubs back into the clubhouses and activities there. So we're excited about that, and we look forward to it. The second thing I wanted to mention real briefly was there's been a lot of discussion, and I know the boards have received my email, but to the public, we had a replacement for our CFO has left us, leaving us, and as that, we did a full-blown recruitment to try to select a replacement for that. In evaluating the top candidates, which included a couple of our in-house candidates, I am moving forward with the best fit that I saw with regards to the candidates that we saw, that we're going to do a in-house process where we are going to promote temporarily Steve Hormuth into the finance director position, and I renamed it back to finance director, which it was a few years ago. And Steve's going to sit in that chair for 5 months, and then Jose Campos, who's also critical financial manager, and will also get an opportunity to sit in that chair as an acting finance director. And then at the end of that process, we'll be selecting one of those two candidates to move into the position full-time. In the meantime, we're backfilling a couple positions that we have on the books to make sure that we have adequate staffing and the needs of United, 3rd, GRF are all being met through our finance operations. As a result of that, and as part of that, I've pledged and I've indicated to the board presidents and vice presidents the other day, and as I have indicated in the minute, I will be taking a more active role, as well as Siobhan will be taking a more active role to support the finance department to ensure that they're meeting and addressing the desires and needs of United in particular, and talking today, and the comments that Sue had made in her opening comments, because we want to move this thing forward and we want to do it appropriately. And we look forward to it, and my two staff people are very anxious to move forward. And to put it bluntly, this is going to be a cultural change, and we want to create a cultural change that I think is going to be real positive for everybody. And so I appreciate the ability to let you know what we're doing, and we look forward to moving forward. Thank you. I'll turn over to Siobhan because I know she has a few updates.
Siobhan, Sarah?
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, Siobhan, please.
Honorable President, members of the board, I have a few announcements this morning. From the Recreation Department, the Village Bazaar is returning on Saturday, June 5th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This will be held in the Clubhouse 5 parking lot. Registration is currently open via ActiveNet. Spaces are assigned on a first-come, first-served basis, so if interested, we encourage early registration. For more information, you may call the Recreation Department at 949-597-4382 or email recreation@vmsinc.org. Thanks to all the dedicated volunteers, the Library and History Center reopened on May 5th. Library hours are Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. History Center hours are from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on weekdays and by appointments. Patrons must follow social distancing practices and wear face coverings at all times. The Social Services Division, Memorial Care Saddleback, and the Foundation of Laguna Woods is hosting a free virtual class on age-friendly care with a special emphasis on mobility and falls. This will occur on Thursday, May 20th from 2 to 3 p.m. Dr. David Law will lead an interactive discussion covering the 4 M's framework and best practice interventions for an age-friendly health system. Participants will have the opportunity to ask Dr. Law questions during the discussion. To register and receive the Zoom link, please visit memorialcare.org/balancing act. And as a reminder to our new residents to the village, they are encouraged to attend a virtual new resident orientation session. These informational sessions are an opportunity for new residents to become familiar with the Mutual and to talk to a board member who represents the Mutual. The next orientation session for United residents is Friday, June 4th at 9 a.m. Residents should RSVP by emailing Executive Assistant Becky Jackson at becky.jackson@vmsinc.org. And finally, Saturday, May 15th is the bulky item pickup for the month. This is a free service. Please remember to notify resident services prior to setting out your bulky items. Resident services can be reached at 949-597-4600. The bulky item should be placed near the trash enclosure or where you regularly set out your trash bins. Set out should occur the night before or no later than 7 a.m. on Saturday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. Can I have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
Can I ask a question about Jeff's statement?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Jeff, you mentioned about this is a cultural change. So for the past year or two, we've had this one for the culture has been stayed the same. And once after Betty, our CFO, leaves, the cultural change becomes possible. Are you implying that Betty is our CFO is the only one that holding off the cultural change? And also, what I heard from in the past, and you stated that the president recommended somebody else, okay, the new hire, and you didn't like it, so you want to make your own decisions. may I ask what is the reason that all the people that have been here will be able to make a cultural change while we are doing the same thing? What is the stopping?
Okay, Andre, he got the question. Let's go on.
So, point of order. This is employee matters.
Yeah, this cannot be discussed at this time.
Point of order.
We are not going to. It is on the agenda for the closed session, Andre. Please close up.
I just want to.
No, we cannot do it now. Thank you. It is a employee, and Jeff has complete control. Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right. Is there any discussion on the consent calendar? Okay, by acclamation, we accept the consent calendar. All right, we're on to unfinished business, 11A. Diane, did you review this, under the board, the Treasury report?
Yes, I had.
Okay, thank you. Azar, did you review the treasurer's report?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So we will take a vote on 11A. I will do a roll call vote. Cash. Okay. Elsie.
Yes.
Netta. Everybody seems
Yes.
Manuel.
No, and I want to explain why. I'll make the.
No, we will.
Okay, we're still not in compliance.
Okay,
and
thank you.
A lot of things have to happen to bring us into compliance, and then we can approve these things.
Okay.
That's why we do these reviews.
Yep, it's fine. Azar,
Yes.
Reza, Diane, Diane?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Andre?
Yes, I approve them, but I wish I could get more detailed information. And,
okay, thank you. Cash? We will take that as an A. Reza? An abstention?
Reza, you're muted.
Yeah, I said I abstain.
You abstain, okay. All right, we have 2 abstentions, 1 no, and 1, 2, 3.
President Margolis, we also have Director Gilmore here.
Oh, is he here? I'm sorry, I didn't see him. Okay, yeah. Brian? We're voting on 11A. Well, I'm not hearing. And I know I don't have a picture, so. Okay, we'll take that as another abstention. So we have 3.
I have a procedure issue question.
Andre, this is not the time. Thank you. Let's move on to 11B.
Why is not time to talk about procedural question?
Because this is not a procedure. You need to bring that to the Finance Committee. This is not the Finance Committee.
This has nothing to do with the finance. This is something to do with this board meeting.
Okay, I'm moving on. 11B, please. Elsie, would you go ahead and have you done your work on that?
Why can't we express opinion?
Andre, please be quiet. I've asked you not to talk.
Thank you for yelling at me, okay?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to yell. I'm just tired of you interrupting when I say.
I'm asking a procedural question.
Go ahead and do it, please.
Okay. My question is, why can't we express our opinion on our vote? Why aren't we allowed to express our opinion on the vote?
Thank you. I will permit it from now on. Elsie, please go ahead. Have you done your resale process the process. Would you make the motion for accepting the resale process efficiencies?
Yes, Madam President, I make the motion that we accept 11B relative to the resale process efficiencies.
I will second that.
Okay. Now, is there any discussion on this?
Sorry, Sue. We just removed the processing for the credit card. As you remember, that if somebody have a higher credit report, it doesn't necessary to send all these reports.
Right, correct.
Why we remove these things and the weeks for the processing goes up instead of coming down, because before malware is 3 weeks, or even during the malware they told us 3 weeks, now it's 28 days.
Okay, we've had a huge number of resales, and we have had a number of people out. So we have had lack of staff. I think it will be taken care of pretty quickly. They are moving as fast as they can.
Yeah, and Nada, this is only for, excuse me, Madam President, Nada, number one, this hasn't taken effect yet because it was on 28-day review. And number two, this only affects the people doing the reviews, which would be board members. This doesn't affect staff. Except it cuts down a little bit on their scanning time, because they don't have to scan 20 different pages. So it affects them a little tiny bit, but mostly it's so anyway,
okay, Pamela's on the line. We'll let Pamela answer. Let's take the vote, Pamela, if I can.
Hold on one, Madam Chair, you asked for comments.
Okay, I didn't see you I'm sorry, I don't see you in the box. Okay, go ahead, Carl.
Sorry. By the way, I have to get this Zoom program redone. Okay, Shaban, please have Chuck sent me the new Zoom program, because I'm having major problems today. Under the circumstances right now, we decided we weren't going to read through the pink pages, okay, 25 specific things, whereases, okay, but we were going to do the version, the Cook's Tour version of the thing. But in this particular case, we didn't even do the Cook's Tour version. We basically said, yeah, we're going to vote on the item, but we don't even know what the item is.
Okay.
What are we doing? I mean,
Elsie, would you go ahead and do a little more on this, please?
Sure. This is we went over this last month, Carl, but that's fine. Basically, this is not financial qualifications. This is just well, actually, Pamela, do you want to do this, or do you want me to do it? I don't care.
I'm happy to help. This is a recommendation to revise the financial qualification policy to show that persons with a FICO score of less than 700 must submit a full credit report. Those with FICO scores of 700 or higher will be permitted to submit a credit summary only in the membership application package. There were a couple of other administrative changes that we felt would reduce the paperwork within the resale packages. Let me get to the right page, I'm sorry. This related to escrow instructions in the resale packages. Typically they are 10, 12 or more pages long. Really all we need are the first couple of pages of the escrow instructions that identify to us and to you who the buyer is, who the seller is, their address, and the terms of the transaction, including any contingencies that might be included. The second administrative change that we believe we can accomplish has to do with those persons who own other properties and who report equity in those properties as a part of their asset qualification. Instead of having pages and pages of property profiles and market analyses, really all we need is the property detail page and the area sales analysis that reflects the median value for that particular property or properties. Lastly, there are applicants who provide their investment account documents, and they provide all of the details of every account that they own. And again, we don't need all of that detail. It's TMI. All we need is the summary page for each account that shows the date of the report, the owner of the account number, and the balance in that account. So with those three administrative changes and the board's approval of updating the credit report guidelines for your financial policy, we think that we can help streamline this process.
Thank you, Pamela. And I would only add to that relative to the FICO score of 700 or higher, just not having to submit an entire credit report, that does not apply to people that have a FICO score of 700 or more who also have outside mortgages. Those people will still have to submit an entire credit report. And I want to point out also that this whole process came from complaints from directors that didn't like to go through all those pieces of paper. So this is, definitely a director-oriented revision, although it will cut some of staff's time down in terms of scanning. So are there any other questions about this? And this is on a 28-day review. So any other questions? Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, we're going to take a vote now. All right, Cash. Can you vote? Can you vote?
I abstain right now. I'm just getting in and out. I don't know what the discussions are.
Okay. Elsie.
I vote yes.
Netta.
Yes.
Manuel.
Yes.
Azar.
Yes.
Reza.
Yes.
Diane.
Yes.
Brian. Carl.
Yes.
Andre.
Yes.
We have 2 abstentions and all the rest are yes. And Cash, yes, the answer to your question is yes. Okay, we're going to go on to new business. The election schedule. I make a motion that we approve the 2021 annual election schedule and approve the resolution appointing the inspector of elections. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right.
Excuse me. So what happened to 11C?
We moved it to 12C. It will be bringing it up as 12C.
Right, thank you.
Okay. We are going to approve using the same company as we've used all the time for the elections people. And I'm sorry. Okay. I'd like to give the milestones that we're going to have. The nominations will open June 30th, 2021. The nominations will close July 30th, 2021. The mail ballot packages will go out August 30th. The mail ballots will be due back into the center September 30th. The tabulation of the ballots will occur on October 1st, and the annual meeting of the mutual members is October 12th. Are there any discussion on this? Unelectric Corporation will be used as the accounting people, and it will be on the screen if we cannot open up the building as yet. So you can watch the counting. Okay, let's go ahead for a vote. 12A.
I have a question.
Sure.
Will we get the latest schedule sent to us?
It's in your packet right there in front of you on page 1 of 6.
I don't see that in the unfinished business.
12A, page 1 of
12A.
6.
Okay. My mistake.
There will be 4 positions open as of June 30th. All right. Cash, are you available?
Yes.
Elsie,
Yes.
Netta,
Yes.
Manuel,
Yes.
Azar,
Yes. Yes.
Reza,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Brian, Carl,
Yes.
Andre.
Yes.
All right. We're ready to move on to 12B. Carl, would you go ahead and introduce 12B, please?
I'm going to ask Grant to show the 2 chargeable service sheets that are in the package with the red changes that were made.
Oh, no, let's put it on. No, put this on. Put this on. I don't want to sit on that.
Diane, please mute yourself. Thank you.
Grant, did you hear what I asked for, please?
I'm not sure.
Yes, one moment. Just let me bring that up real quick.
In the meantime, I will state that on April 10th of last year, the United Board adopted a resolution as part of the Handyman program to expand our list of non-emergency maintenance chargeable services so that residents could have a trusted VMS technician repair or replace an alteration that the resident had installed and for which Laguna View Woods Village is no longer responsible to repair. In that program, we established a listing of services that would be offered with the associated estimated costs that could be charged for those services. And hopefully Grant can put that up. As would happen with any program, as we are using this program, we have found that additional services needed to be added since the requests have been made for those services. The chargeable services listing in this new resolution that is being presented today supplements the services that were adopted by the original resolution that is being, and that was approved on April 10th of last year. We have added 8 additional services to the listing, plus we have also added an additional limitation to the limitations listing that is part of the chargeable services. These additions are shown in red, if we can get it up, in your electronic board package. The M&C committee has already accepted these additions, and it is now before the board for approval. We are only asking for approval of the additions, and we are not here to reassess the whole listing and the whole program, so please do not question anything that was on the listing before this resolution was issued. I move this resolution.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you. I guess we are having trouble getting it up.
Okay, well, it's in the package as and the package that you have in front of you, the printed package does not have the red changes. However, the one that's electronic does have the red changes on it. So if you go to the electronic file, it's there. And there were 8 specific additions that were made to a whole list of things.
Okay.
So anyway, that's where we stand.
All right, let's move. I'm going to take a vote now. Cash? Oh, wait a second.
I would like to ask, what are some of these charges so high for appliances?
I'm sorry, Andre was first. Let's go ahead and have Andre.
Okay, this is related to chargeable services, but not directly related to this motion. I've received several complaints. I've received several complaints that the chargeable service didn't get signatures from the residents.
Okay, Andre, that should be taken up in the M&C meeting.
Point of order. Yeah, point of order.
It's not point of order. It's not for this discussion. Okay, Cash, go ahead.
Well, I was wondering why under the appliances when the alterations are priced so high? $230 for installing an oven?
It takes.
I don't think
These are what it costs us. These are the cost for an electrician for 2 hours burden.
Burden costs for, so if we have to install our oven, it costs same amount? If United Oven goes off? Okay.
Yep.
But it's not mandatory.
Madam President, that was not one of the changes that were made. We're only discussing 8 specific changes.
Okay.
That was last year's.
I'm going to call for the vote now. Cash?
Yes.
Elsie?
Yes.
Netta?
Abstain.
Manuel?
Yeah.
Azar?
Abstain.
Reza?
No.
Diane?
Yes.
Brian? Carl?
Yes.
Andre?
Abstain.
2, 3, 4 abstentions, and the rest were yes. All right, we're moving on now to 12A. Manuel?
There was one no.
What?
Reza said no.
Oh, one no, you're right, correct. Reza said no. Thank you, Reza. I do have that recorded.
Am I answer?
Yep, you're up now.
Okay, we're on item 12C. And it's been.
So may I ask, what's the vote for the previous one?
4 abstentions, 1 no, 6 yeses. Okay, go ahead, Manuel.
I would appreciate no interruptions from Andre, please. Thank you. First of all,
if you can do the same thing to me, I will not do it to you.
Andre, behave.
Well, would you please ask the man?
Like I said, Sue.
Manny, don't interrupt me.
Andre, if you don't interrupt each other, it'll be fine. Thank you. Please be quiet, Andre.
Sue, I have the floor. He's on the line. Okay. There's been some confusion on this item. It is now 12C, and the way it should read is entertain a motion to approve temporary borrowings by the operating fund from the reserve fund. Then in parentheses, it should say May initial notification. It must be postponed for 28 days for member review and comment to comply with Civil Code Section 4360. The reason why that is necessary is because even though it was brought up as a topic last month, there was no resolution attached to it. There were no requirements that weren't included in the report or in any of the items. This one now includes all those things. And I will make this brief. I will tell you what the resolution states. This would be resolution 01-21-XX. And it's labeled temporary borrowing by operating fund from the reserve fund. And it's whereas pursuant to Civil Code 5515, the Board of Directors may authorize temporary transfer of funds from reserve fund to an association's general operating fund to meet short-term cash flow requirements or other expenses. This is only done if the board has provided notice of the intent to consider the transfer in a board meeting, notice provided pursuant to Section 4920. That notice has been provided as part of the agenda for this board meeting. Whereas because necessary to transfer monies from the reserve fund to the operating fund due to timing differences as to when property taxes assessments are collected and the corresponding amounts are required to be paid, and also due to short-term cash flow shortfalls in the operating fund. Whereas the amount of funds needed to be transferred from the reserve fund to the operating fund has been determined to be $6,100,000. My previous draft had $6 million, but staff has come back and said the amount, the maximum amount that had been used has been $6,100,000. And the repayment of such funds from the operating funds to the reserve fund is anticipated to be provided by future property tax assessment collections and through positive cash flows from operations. Whereas it is planned and anticipated that sufficient cash flow will be generated in the operating fund to repay the $6,100,000 of the reserve fund in 3 months, and therefore a special assessment will not be needed. Now, therefore, be it resolved as of May 11, 2001, that the transfer up to $6,100,000 as a temporary transfer from the reserve fund to the operating fund for the reasons stated herein, and with a plan to repay the funds in 3 months, but no later than 1 year from this date, hereby authorized. Resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are here authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. The other comments that I'd like to make here, so everybody understands, if at the end of 3 months or 1 year, this amount be paid back, then it has to come back to the board for approval for either extension or renewal of the amounts. I anticipate that it's going to be difficult to generate this much cash to pay it back within this time period. And I think we're going to be until the operating fund is able to generate sufficient cash flow to get us over these hurdles. This is going to be a recurring thing. But what I want to emphasize here is that VMS has to anticipate these things enough in advance so that we get them on the agenda and have them approved by the board with full knowledge of what's going on, rather than the way it's happened in the past. That's the way this will bring us back into compliance with Civil Code Section 5550. I welcome any questions that any directors have on this item. So that's the resolution that I propose.
Okay, is there a second?
I second it.
I second it. Oh, whatever.
Okay.
Or Carl.
Okay, we'll take Carl. Okay. The discussion will begin now. Let's see. Andre?
I'm coming. I recently gave a thought on this issue, this temporary borrowing issue. What I would like to propose is that we have a separate fund for property tax, and all the money goes in there. Coming April, when we collect only a limited amount, we don't have sufficient amount. I understand that. Maybe what we need to do is put a seed money in there, in that fund. Okay, so every year it comes to that time, we will have sufficient fund for that. And then we can pay that. And then the rest of it, we have 6 month collection, then we pay 6 months. Then we'll just
please bring this idea to the finance committee, and then we'll be able to look at it.
Okay, so that will, what I see is that's probably a more clean way to handle the situation. We don't have to borrow money back and forth and people get confused. Okay. So I'm against this proposal at this point, the resolution. Let's go back to the finance committee, talk about it, and then come up with this better way to handle this.
All right, thank you, Andre.
Shortage issue.
Thank you.
Sue, may I respond to that?
Yeah, you can respond. Just a quick response, please.
Okay. This resolution is to bring us into compliance. It has nothing to do with future plans as to how we can try to make the problem. Okay. Right now, we're trying to clean up what hasn't been cleaned up from the past. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Cash.
Well, I have a question on page 3 of 11. The contributions for insurance are $319,835. That sounds a little too high. That totals to over $3 million a year.
It's much higher than that. It's $12 million a year that we put into taxes.
Yeah, but the insurance is.
So let me answer that. He's talking about insurance. Yes, it's over $3 million.
Oh, insurance.
It's over $3 million.
That is our price.
If you look at the financial statements and if you look at the blue book, it's over $3 million. Let's
Yep.
go on.
Thank you.
Okay. Azar.
Reza was before me.
No, Andre was in front of you, then you're next on my chat list here.
Okay, thank you. Let me get up my, sorry. Oh.
Okay. If you want,
let's Reza talk. I'm bringing my, I don't know why.
Okay, Reza, go ahead, and then while Azar gets ready.
I'm against this resolution at this time. Continuously borrowing money from reserve is not a good idea. Maybe what Andre suggested of having
that needs to go to the finance committee. All we're trying to do is to get ourselves in compliance with 5515. This is not saying that this is the best way to do things. We are just trying to get ourselves in compliance. If you are against getting us in compliance, that's fine. Azar, go ahead now. You're muted, Azar. Azar, we can't hear you. Azar, you're muted.
This is unbelievable, Sue. Sue, you're muted. Sue, you're muted.
You're muted now, Sue.
You're muted, Sue.
Okay, thank you. This is not a vote on whether this is the best way to do finances. This is just to bring us in compliance with 5515. We will be taking this up in the finance committee to find a better way, if we can, to get out of this situation. And that's what I'd like to make sure that everybody's aware. This is not a vote on whether this is good or bad. It is a vote whether we're compliant. Okay, Azar, do you want to go ahead? I can't hear you, Azar.
You're muted, Azar. You're muted.
Azar, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now, we can hear you now.
Okay, this presentation actually is not complete, and I wanted to mention three things. There are lots of violations on that one regarding to David Sterling, but as you can see, Grant, the email that I sent to you, can you put it on the board so everybody can see it?
Yes, one moment, please.
When is there, because I cannot see you, Grant, when is on the board, can you tell me?
It's not on the board. Can you go ahead? Yeah, go ahead. There it is.
Okay. This is the presentation that we received for the discussion is a $2 million difference, and we are talking about this point at this point. Of course, based on David Sterling, anytime that they need it, they have to present, and by approval of board, maybe they get or maybe they not in the hands of operating as a borrowing. But for this projection, I wanted to bring attention to everyone and all the board members. In the middle one is the projection that we received from VMS. And those red one is the one that I added. First of all, I wanted to mention that operating cash is not 7.9 million, is 8.2. These are based on March 31st. The both 6.37 is correct and 5.9 for property tax is correct. However, they are collecting supplemental tax, which is $96,479. And also, when you are coming on the down, when you're adding April, we are receiving from GRF on the April is $1,564,561. So when you add all of these, actually the amount is not 2.7 million, is only 750,000. And when you adding at the end of the audit of 2020, the operating account has 580. Before operating account go and borrow from reserve account, they should use the money that they had in the hand. And that was 580. When you minus that one is 169,000. Not to mention that the excess revenue over the expenses for our March was 600,000, which bring the whole operating account in the positive, even they pay it in the April. So we can see there is no need for borrowing from reserve account. The managing must be correct, not the borrowing from the reserve account. And overnight, when President Margolis gave the full authorization to Manny acted as a king and right on to all of us in his kingdom that, I am reserving $6 million. I am talking and I am on the floor. $6 million he raised from 2.7, all of overnight by 6 million. And then guess what? We received an email from VMS staff that thanked him and said, well, we can get 6 million, why not 6.1 million? Sure enough, keep going up. What is the reason for all of this? There is no need to get money from the reserve account. I am asking all of you, and plus, the way Manny, you handle this one is 3 times you violated David Sterling. We need 4 days before to know this one. You are against 3 numbers.
Madam President, I object.
Madam President, please. I'm now talking. I am asking. I am done. Hold on.
Okay.
We can talk. Everybody can talk.
Everybody can talk. Please. That's enough.
Madam President,
we do not put names in. We do not say names of directors when we speak. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to let Steve go forth because he is the finance person. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Sue. So, Director Azar, so the numbers that were presented from the projection do in fact tie to March 31st financial statements specific to the operating fund. So you mentioned that, forgive me because the screen is, the numbers are no longer on the screen, but you had mentioned that there was cash of $8 million, 8 point something, but in fact, if you reference your financial statements that were presented to you previously, it is in fact the number that was on the projection of $7,911,000. So ultimately, the $1.6 million, I think that was referenced with regards to the receivable from GRF. So that's a monthly amount. So that is taken into consideration when we provided the projection. The only reason that the receivable was included in the previous projection is because there was, in the February projection, the receivable had not been paid from the previous month. So this is back on track, and hence why the projection is correctly stated. So, and specific to your question as to why it went from $2.7 million to $6.1 million. So that 2.7 is still listed as a projection. However, in order to keep an adequate amount of cash on file to pay other bills that are coming through, the additional $3 million was added. And overall, the whole reason why it was brought up to $6.1 million is, once again, if you go back to your operating statement, your fund balance sheet as of March 31st, you'll note that the payable to the operating fund was $6,037,000. So the intent of that $6.1 million was to address the March 31st statement as a peak borrowing. So on a go-forward basis, I do anticipate having the funding coming through from your operations to pay down the dollar amounts as projected. So within the 3 months that you had allowed for in the previous meeting, so long as well as the finance meeting. So again, Civil Code does allow the payment to be paid back within 12 months. So, but per the request of the Finance Committee, we will be doing everything we can to make certain that balance is paid back on time. So just to recap, the dollar amounts that were included, the original projection that went out in the staff report, those dollar amounts are correct.
Thank you, Steve. I want to remind everybody, this is past history. The money was borrowed. We are trying to make ourselves whole by voting on this and making us take care of what was done. We are not looking forward, and we will be looking forward in the future of the Finance Committee. I'm going to go ahead with the vote. I think if people don't understand it, we will go forward. Okay, Cash?
Yes.
Elsie?
I have a question about the definition. I have a question about definition. The temporary is not very clear about the definition. Are we talking about temporary? We need to return it, or just one-time borrowing deal? If it's
this is a one-time borrowing deal that was already done.
Let's change this one-time borrowing deal. To change the temporary to one time, because temporary means you can have.
That's the language right out of David Sterling.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right out of David Sterling. Sure. Let me answer.
If it's a one-time deal, then property tax doesn't apply to property tax.
Okay, Andre.
So repeated it.
Point of order. Point.
All right. Thank you. We're voting. I'm not. You can argue all you want, guys. This is a one-time. We're voting to get ourselves whole. The future is they can temporary borrow. David Steering says we can. Let's go on. Elsie.
No, we don't even know what we're voting for. The question
You're voting for the past of having borrowed $2 million for taxes.
Yes.
Netta.
No.
Manuel.
Yes.
Azar.
You're muted.
No.
Reza.
No.
Diane.
Yes.
Brian, are you here yet?
I am here and I'm voting no.
Carl.
Yes.
Andre.
No.
Six yeses, 5 noes, it passes. This is to bring us up to date. Thank you. Please put your hands down. Jeff, did you want to say anything? Jeff Parker?
I did, Sue. I just wanted to make sure that, and you've said it a number of times, but again, the main purpose here, folks, is that you have requested that our past practice where we didn't come to the board was in violation of the Davis-Sterling or wasn't consistent with Davis-Sterling. That resolution that you just passed says that anytime we borrow from reserves to help operations, we need to pass a resolution and bring it before the board, and that's what that resolution does. It's to be consistent with the Davis-Sterling Act. So I know the people that voted no, I think you were thinking more the process, but what we were intentionally saying is you need to have a resolution that says you're borrowing, it doesn't matter if it's $1 or $6 million. The question is, if you're borrowing from reserves to help operations, in order to do that and be consistent with Davis-Sterling Act, you need a resolution like you just approved. In the past, staff was doing that without your authority. And what I mean by that, we were given the direction by former boards to move that money. And we have reports that show that the boards instructed VMS to do that and PCM before that. This goes back many, many years. And the Davis-Sterling Act says when you move money from short-term borrowing from reserves to operation, it requires a resolution and approval by the board. And that's what this is all about. So it's not about a how much, it's about how. And I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Let's go on now to committee reports. Azar, you are ready for the finance report. Azar, you're muted. Would you please unmute yourself? And Grant, can you put the slides up, please? Is Grant there, Jeff?
Yes, one moment.
Thank you.
Okay. This is the slide 1. Through the reporting period of March 31st, 2021, total revenue for United was 11.3 million compared to expenses of 9.8, resulting in net revenue of 1.5 million. Can we have a slide 2, please? In finance, we keep a close eye on the operating portion of our financial results. The operating fund without depreciation shows an operating surplus of 715,000 through this report. And this chart shows how much of our revenue went to the operation. Okay, can we have a slide 3, please? This chart takes the full income statement and compare those results to budget. We can see that United ended the period better than budget by 1.7 when combining both operating and reserve savings. And slide 4, please. You can see the most significant variance from budget were attributable to reserve program. And you can see in this chart, better one, that the outside service was 1.4 million due to timing, and budgets are spread evenly for programs such as waste line, remediation, and building structures. And also you can see that employee compensation was favorable, about 369,000, and primarily in M&C department and landscaping. And the material and surplus was 270,000 favorable. Variance result in several areas of operations, such as interior components, plumbing, and appliances due to timing of expenditures. And also you can see that property and sales tax is 102,000 favorable variance, resulting due to lower property tax expenses than anticipated. The only unfavorable was unrealized gain and loss on investment. Unfavorable variance due to adverse conditions for a bond investment during the reporting period. A monthly entry is made to reflect investment market conditions which fluctuated. And also on slide 5, can we have the slide 5, please? This is a pie chart that you can see. We show non-assessment revenues earned to date of 373,000. And this is excluding of unrealized loss on available for sale investment. And if you include that investment, you can see that the revenue is totaled by 39,000. Revenue is organized by categories, starting with our largest revenue, generating a category fee and charges to residents, followed by laundry, resale processing fee, and so forth. Just a second, if you can see how the others get percentage. On slide 6, please, on this pie chart, we see the expenses to date of 9.8 million, showing that our largest categories of expenses are for employee compensation, property and sale tax, followed by insurance, utility, materials and supplies, outside service, and so forth. Of course, at the upper right corner, we show a breakout of the utility category. On slide 7, on the next slide, we see those same expenses, excluding property and sale tax. And of course, on slide 8, our fund balance are shown here. The contingency fund balance on March 31st was 527,000. Contribution and interest are total 172,000, while expenditures came in 16,000. So you can see the revenue fund balance on March 31st was 20.8 million. Contribution and interest collected total 2.4 million, while expenditures was 1.7 million. And if we can get a slide 9. We compare these two historical fund balance for the past 5 years on the chart, and you can see that the tiny line, and we have at the average of 21 million. And slide 10, which is the last slide. We have a slide here to show resale history from 2019 to 2021 through March 31st. United sale totaled 87. The sales was 87, which is 6 units higher than previous year for the same time of period. The average year-to-date sale price is still is at 260,000. And that was the report for March of 2021. Thank you. Sue, are you there?
Brian, would you give the report for the architecture? I was muted. Thank you.
Yes, we had our architectural committee meeting in April, and we also had a subsequent special meeting on asbestos, very well facilitated, and had some interesting outcomes. We have the next meeting is TBD because there's a conflict with Edison coming up and power outage, so we're rescheduling that.
Thank you. Cash, would you give the report on member hearings?
Yes, Madam Chairman, Chair. There were 3 items discussed. 2 were properly handled and taken care of. Third one has been postponed. Will be discussed on the next meeting, which is May 27th at 9 o'clock. And it's a closed meeting, virtual closed meeting.
Thank you. LC, governing docs.
Thank you, Madam President. The regular meeting of the United Governing Docs Review Committee took place on April 15th. It was a virtual meeting. I want to reach out a little bit to the people in the audience that if you want to participate or ask questions or submit comments, you can send it. You can send your comments and requests via email to meeting@bmsinc.org anytime before the meeting is scheduled. And you may also call area code 949-268-2020, beginning a half hour before the meeting begins and throughout the remainder of the meeting. You can also join it with Zoom from the calendar. We discussed the status of our goals, and they're coming right along, the operating rules guidebook, and active, we also discussed active resolutions being accessible on the website. I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but we voted on to recommend to the, I don't think we have to recommend it to the board. I think it's just a procedural issue about who's gonna, this has to do with the old resolutions prior to 2006. And staff is going to, well, again, that gets too complicated. But anyway, we have these resolutions that were prior to 2006 that contain phrases or names that are copyrighted elsewhere. And so we can't use those resolutions. We can't list them on the website. So we talked about ways to find the ones that are still active. A lot of them aren't even active anymore, but some of them are. So we talked about that. We accepted the committee chair guidelines, SOP, and that was about it. It was a full meeting. And the next meeting is on the 20th of May at 1:30 in the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre?
Yes, could you bring up the spreadsheet that I sent to you, Grant or Cheryl? I need to show them the spreadsheet, the charts, and the matrix, and all this information to share with everybody.
Just one moment.
Okay, why?
There are 3 tabs on it. The first tab is the basic workload trend that shows the beginning count, the closing count, and the change count, and the end count. The end count is the beginning of the next week's beginning count. Okay, that's one of the charts, spreadsheet number 1, tab number 1. The second one has the information of how long does it take to close these tickets. The tickets, in the sense of landscape, tickets means information of complaints. Okay, all the complaints. Okay, here is the, if you look at the bottom, it's a Q130X. If we look at it, it has the information of, let's take a look at on the matrix on the left-hand side. The end of the week date is January 9th, let's say. The beginning count is 5. That's from the last week, because the last week ending Saturday is January 2nd, not many days. Okay, so the new count, they received 117 tickets, complaints, and the close count, they closed 61 tickets so far. Okay, on the day we received the spreadsheet, the data, ticket sheet. And then there's 56 new information that's tickets that's not solved during that week. So the total of 61. As you can see, the 61 is next week's, and then there's a new count, there's a closed count, there's a change count, and the ending count is all these numbers. The end of February 27th, that's all the data I have. There's 209 of them. Okay, looking at the chart, if you look at it, the red one is the new count, the new ticket count coming in, and the green one is the closing count. As you can see, the new count is always higher than the closed count, except in January 23rd. Okay, so as a result, the purple one is the cumulative count, which is the end count, the column F. Okay, as you can see, the end count is continuously increasing. That brought me to alert and say, why are we having all these end count constantly increasing? And what's the reason for them not resolved? Okay, that's one of the issue that I've seen. We need to look at those prolonged tickets and see what's happening there. Can we resolve them? Because that's a customer satisfaction issue that takes the tracking people to track it, and also that takes management, supposedly take management attention to pay attention to them and solve their problem. So let's look at the Q245X. Okay, yes. Okay, as we can see that the closed duration takes for each week takes 3.6 days to close it, 4.93 days, 6.2 days. So it's very quick, okay, for those closed duration. And all those closed count, 99 of them, 98 of them. But for the open duration, it takes extra long time. All those that are still open takes 51 days, still open, 44 days, still open, 36 days, still open. If you look at it, it's probably something like 7 or 8 days, which is reasonable because it's 7 days ago, it's 51 days. So the cumulative open count is 208. There is one record we took out because there has this data is only up to February 27th, but there is an ending date that's in March. So we assume that's a typo error. We took that out. Okay, looking at the Q250X. So sometimes there's tracking errors. If we use a system to track it, it will be much easier to ensure much more accurate. Here is the left-hand side is the date that the ticket is opened. Okay, for example, on January 9th, 2021, there are a total of 117 for that week. Ending on Saturday, January 9th, there are a total of 117 tickets opened, complaints opened. On January 9th, these are the closed weeks. On the same week, we closed 56 of them. And then in the next week, we closed 28 of them. In January 23rd, the next week, we closed 10 of them. And then January 30th, we closed 4 of them. And then on February 13th, we closed 1 of them. There are 18 tickets that's still open there. Okay, so if you look at January 16th, we see them the first 4 weeks. It seems like they are working on that, but then they stalled. They couldn't go any further anymore. And January 23rd, the same thing, 4 weeks. January 30th, 2 weeks plus 1, and 2. So it seems like they continues working on that for 4 weeks, and then they stopped. Okay, I'm not saying they stopped working on it, but they couldn't resolve the issue anymore. Okay.
Thank you, Andre. That's a sufficient report.
Okay. May I continue to share with the findings that I have with?
No, this is sufficient. This should be shared in the landscape meeting, not in the board meeting. Thank you.
Yes. I don't. The question.
Okay, we're done. Let's go on to maintenance and construction.
The problem I have.
Andre, we're on to maintenance and construction. Thank you.
Everybody can finish their statement. Why can't I finish my statement? The problem I have is at this point, all I have is February 27th data, and the VMS is not supplying any further data. They used they canceled the committee meeting, so I cannot ask anything. And when I request to meet them,
Thank you, Andre.
Okay, so this is a
summary. It's got to be summary here.
This is summary, right? Thank you, Reza. Point of order. Carl, would you go ahead and give us the Maintenance and Construction Committee, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the MNC committee meeting on April 28th, we met for approximately 5.5 hours. It was the longest MNC meeting that I've ever been part of, but we did discuss many issues that needed to be addressed. At this time, I'm only going to give you highlights. We discussed our project log and addressed additional ways of presenting this log so that we will have more current understanding of the projects that are being undertaken. We then reviewed the revised chargeable services list that was presented to the board today. As a part of that discussion, we addressed the fact that the chargeable services listing is a work in progress. And as we find other things that should be added, they will be brought to the committee for our review. This is the basis of the changes that we presented today. There was only 8 changes today. We also discussed the potential addition of electric vehicle charging stations in United. We are looking into the use of grant money to help supplement the cost of adding these stations in United. The M&C department has come up with a potential list of strategic locations for these chargers, since the use of carports is not a viable alternative due to a lack of infrastructure. The addition of needed infrastructure to use the carport electrical plugs to charge the vehicles would be very costly, and we cannot obtain grant money for this alternative. At this time, if you try to use a carport electrical plug to charge your vehicle, you will pop the breakers if more than one car is charging simultaneously. We also looked into the possibility of saving money with regard to roofers responding to leaks that are found in the manors. Many of these leaks are not roof leaks at all, and some of them that are actual roof leaks are caused by skylights and solar tubes that were installed by the residents. The cost of dispatching these roofers is becoming substantial, and we need to find a better way to determine when we need to dispatch these roofers. We do try to send out our VMS water intrusion people to the manors as part of the triage process before we send the roofer out in order to determine if a roofer is actually needed. However, depending on the time of day or the fact of the weather itself, and it's not raining at that time, does come into play into the situation. And as such, we send out roofers prior to implementing the triage method in certain cases. We also need to ensure that we back charge the residents when leaks are found in roof penetrations that were part of an alteration that was put in by the resident himself. The damage as a result of that roof leak, which may cause damage to the actual resident manor and the manor below him or whatever, okay, is all to be borne by the resident if the leak happens as a result of a leak in one of the alterations that were made. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 23rd at 9:30 a.m. Please come and join us remotely via Zoom or whatever methods we're using these days. And the methodology to do that is in our village weekly newsletter. Thank you.
Okay, and Netta, anything on communication?
We didn't have any meeting, but I noticed that my email and yours and Azar is on the village brief. And I just want to say that all the residents, if they have a problem or if they have any suggestion and recommendation about the media and communication, they can email me. And even we can arrange the Zoom meeting with the residents for the media and communication if they want to give us the suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. GRF, Azar, would you give us the report for the Finance Committee?
Sure. GRF had a finance meeting on April 21st, and in that meeting announced by March 31st, 2021, GRF was better than budget by $171,000, and the actual excess of revenue over expenses by that period of the time was $431,000. Also, there was a discussion about reducing some vehicles that are not in use. the head of general service, Chris, said that Laguna Wood has 421 cars, and some needs to be replaced and some needs to be sold. And also, GRF had a loss on investment in March, and some concerned residents had commented that investing in equity might create a legal issue for GRF. And another issue, despite a motion that passed in previous finance meeting for getting some information from other banks to compare with the Bank of America fees, the finance chair, Jim, said that there would be no information regarding to bank fees, and we will stay with Bank of America. Also, an item placed in future agenda under microgrid financial impact by Director Brett Muldo, who he passed away last week. May he rest in peace, and may his work be remembered, and his passion toward using new technology in the village be continued. Next meeting will be a virtual meeting on June 23rd at 1:30.
Thank you very much. I don't believe there was any strategic planning meeting, and it's to be the CAC-LC.
Thank you, Madam President. The regular meeting of the Golden Rain Foundation Community Activities Committee was held on Thursday, April the 8th, 2021. And we had a lot of it's outdated now because we had the utilization of the open activities, the COVID tier presentation, things like that, you know, are thank goodness, are rapidly changing in a good direction. We had there's this thing called Share Fee Financial Analysis Update that's looking to analyze and reduce costs and look at cost sharing fees, and that's an ongoing project. We also, in a more fascinating area, we discussed the Garden Center 2 speed bumps, which has since been taken care of. Thank you very much, Brian Gruner and Chris Langenauer, for taking care of that. And so at this time in the Garden Center 2, they have rather severe speed bumps that sometimes actually cause pain to people in golf carts if they have back problems because they're so jumpy. But now it's been fixed, so there is a marked little, we removed one part, well, Chris Langenauer's crew and Brian removed one portion of the speed bump, so now golf carts can get through easily without any bumping. So that's really good news. Our next meeting is May 13th at 1:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Manuel, GRF Landscape, please.
Thank you, Sue. The last meeting was held was March 10th, 2021. I reported on that at the last meeting. The main item that came up at that meeting was some members requested if the creek could be cleaned up 3 times a year. At present, it's done twice. And Kurt Lehman's response was that they would consider that at the upcoming budget meeting because any cleanup like that requires that a bonus be involved in supervising that. And that would mean additional costs. The next meeting is held May 12th, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. and it should be a virtual meeting.
Thank you. Carl, Maintenance and Construction.
Thank you. GRF MNC Committee had a meeting on April 14th. At the meeting, we reviewed certain projects that will be worked on or potentially worked on during 2021. Among those projects, we discussed the potential location of EV chargers as they relate to the grants that we may get from Solar California Edison, which I just described within the United MNC meeting. We're doing the same thing in GRF. There are possibility strategic locations at the clubhouses and various other places, but we're going to be working with Southern California Edison to get the grant money to possibly do that. So at this particular point in time, it's a work in progress. We also reviewed the need for and potential costs associated with resurfacing the tennis courts due to safety concerns, and we are going forward with that project. We also discussed the need for additional filtration and/or the use of UV lights or ionization in our heating and air conditioning systems in order to reduce the number of allergens and viruses in the air in the clubhouses. This is something that is still being looked into, since there is still a debate as to which type of system, if any, will need to be used in those facilities. There is contradicting evidence and opinions on the type of system that should be used and the costs associated with those systems. We are not a hospital that is manned 24 hours a day with sick people, so the need for them is still being debated. We also reviewed the potential project for making upgrades to the golf driving range. This past month, we actually physically met at the driving range to actually see what is being presented as a need and whether or not the committee agrees with the changes that are being recommended. Many of the people on the committee feel that the project that is being proposed is too costly and can be done for a smaller price tag. We're working out those details. With regard to the Performing Arts Center, that work is being performed piecemeal by different contractors, as was identified in the Blast news article that was published this past week. So if you don't know, that Blast article has provided information on where we stand with the Performing Arts Center. Our next currently scheduled meeting will be a virtual meeting, then scheduled for June 9th at 9:30 a.m. All residents are invited. With regard to Clubhouse One Ad Hoc Committee, we did not have a meeting last month on this topic. All I can say this month regarding this committee is that the chair of this committee, Bert Mulder, has passed, as was indicated by Azar, and he will be deeply missed by this director and the people on that committee. Thank you.
Okay, Netta?
Media and communication held on April 19, and actually Mr. Ortiz accepted the position of the general manager of broadband services. And for the media and communication department projects that they are working on it on the last month, the VMS year in review video presentation, vaccination program, and launch manual alteration newsletter twice a week. Broadband update about the cable operation report and budget update through February 2021, overview of expiring program contracts, pay subscription report, programming, legislation report as well. And the recommendation of the broadband group is succession planning for tech team, the radio tower maintenance, franchise fee, and splitting the Newt versus Viber to the curb. And the future agenda is the broadband group recommendation, survey of the village residents, continued town halls by CEO Jeff Parker. And the next meeting should be Monday, May 17 at 1:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. LC, mobility and vehicles.
Thank you, Madam President. The regular meeting of the Golden Rain Foundation Mobility and Vehicles Committee was on April the 7th. I reported on that at the last meeting of this board, and the next meeting will be June the 2nd of 2021. Thank you.
Okay, Manuel, security.
Thank you, Madam President. The last meeting was held on April 26th, and there were a number of items of interest that were brought up. One was that there's a number of vacancies in the RV lot. I think there's 17 in Lot A and 7 in B. due to a number of outs. This is pretty unusual. Usually there are not many vacancies. The other item that was brought up was that Carlos Rojas, the chief of security, reported that a patrol officer had helped a member here that has slipped and fallen. I think he had some ski equipment or something and cut himself badly. And he was able to administer help until somebody came from to make sure he got the proper medical attention. In addition to that, we'd had some complaints about stolen bicycles. And this last month, they apprehended 2 persons that were doing that. They called in, of course, the sheriff's department to arrest them and take them away. But what came up was that these persons that they apprehended, the only way they get into the village is because they either have some connection to someone here in the village, a relative or whatever, or a former member. And of course, that question was raised, well, how can we eliminate that? And they said, well, it's pretty difficult. And here's where we need help from the members. And of course, the suggestion was the one they always bring up, and that's that a bicycle or anything of value that you keep outside, make sure you put in your patio area where they can't see it. If you see any suspicious people doing something that they shouldn't be doing, report it to security, and just use good comments. Another thing that came up that, again, of interest was that at gate 12 that leads into the Club 19 and the golf course, it's got a gate system, but it's not on any kind of remote control setup or electronic device. And those gates are pretty heavy and big, so they're looking into installing electronic closures. Again, that's only closed up at night and open up in the mornings. And they'll report the cost of that. And of course, that would go through the GRIF budget process. Another item we were informed about is that Amazon, who does a number of deliveries here in the village, has gotten permission to install special hardware and software to the gate system so that drivers can come in and I go through the full checkout, and they're paying for that cost. And the question I raised, and they assured me that it would be done, is that whatever agreement we have with them, we should have something in writing that we're indemnified in case there's any kind of a loss or theft. Chief Rojas said absolutely, that's been done. And that concludes most of the major items that we discussed. Our next meeting scheduled for June 28th at 1:30 p.m. and that should also be a virtual meeting. Thank you.
Okay, Netta, traffic.
Thank you. It's the last meeting held on April 21, and we had just one hearing about one of our residents that using the electricity, the outside the common area, for charging the car, the electrical car that they have, and everything's fine. You know, we just fine here, and that's it. Just one person. And the next hearing is May 19th. Thank you.
Diane, disaster. Okay, I'll go on. Diane, are you okay? The next meeting is May 25th at 9:30, and she reported on the March 30th before. Report on the insurance. We will be meeting with our insurance broker on Wednesday, and we will start looking to get new insurance at a lower cost, and we will be working on that. This is a closed meeting group. Okay, director's comments. Cash, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to bring that item 10E back at this time if possible, or at the end, whichever way. Excellent meeting otherwise. This lady on 10E, Mrs. Hammelstein, is in her early 90s or late 80s at best, a recent widow, and she had no problems with her electrical connections, etc., until they changed the panel from Pushmatic. And the report that I see, and I'm not an electrical engineer, but I kind of doubt that a 20 amp breaker, 30 amp breaker was used in the previous panel and the wire was 20 amp wire. It doesn't make sense. So, and we are charging her like $450. I think that is not fair because she didn't have this problem until we replaced her Pushmatic. So somebody got to.
She didn't have a fire, Cash.
Pardon me?
She was lucky she did not have a fire.
There's nothing, no such thing as a 20 amp wire that can stay in a 30 amp circuit.
Well,
if she had the previous panel that worked well, the new one should work just as well.
Reza would like to give you the situation. Go ahead, Reza.
The wire size will not create fire between 20 amp and 40 amp. There has to be something else there.
Yeah, there's something else. So somebody should look at it as to what is wrong or what what's the problem.
Thorough maintenance
instead of giving this kind of report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Elsie, do you have anything?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Netta?
I'm just concerned about the time, Sue, and we are talking about it the last meeting that we had, and it's people, they got frustrated. It's time consuming. It's everything is getting 1 month, 1.5 months, or 2 months to finish it. I think that we should do something about it. If we need to hire more people, just do that. I never see something like that in anywhere else.
Okay, right now it is very difficult to hire people, and we do need more people. You're right.
We have a contract with the outsider, with the other work. Why we cannot just tell them? Even I'm not talking about the resale package. I'm talking about even for the water intrusion. You know?
What I'm telling you is that we are trying to hire, and we don't have people applying. Oh, we need to talk offline on this. Manuel? Azar?
Wait, Sue. I'd just like to make one quick comment on, I guess it was 12C. Those numbers that Azar presented, and I don't want to get offended, but
no, we don't.
Just let me make this comment. The March 31st financial statement that she was referring to,
that's right.
That $8 million that she said about, she just needs to go back and look. Included $6 million that had been borrowed from the reserve fund. All she has to do is look. It's right there, real obvious.
Yes.
So they already owed $6 million. So her numbers are bogus. Thank
you. We don't need to talk about that type of thing. Azar. Azar, do you have any comments?
Yes, you are very lucky if you can put a stop on Manny. So there is no way. And based on his age, probably we should respect. Okay, we're going to, yes, I have a comment. Especially, this is, I don't know who is from VMS here that maybe can hear. After we have a malware attack, somehow VMS started to putting $10,000 from the seller, keeping in the escrow, and not releasing that in case there is some information and they have to get the money from the seller if they owe to VMS. I was one of them actually last year. They said in the contract that when we sign it, it's 45 days later you will receive it, which I, as a director, receive it 3 months later. However, I am receiving email after email that people not receiving their $10,000 and it's their own money. What is the reason that VMS keeping their money in their account and not let it go? Because we heard that Chuck talked today that they are at 90% recovery, is there necessary to make problem for residents in this manner?
Two answers to that real quick. Azar, we just checked with our resale people. Your numbers don't consist with our numbers. So I'd love to get your emails that you're talking about. In fact, we're getting ready to look at getting, not doing the $10,000 hold anymore. However, the scenario and why the 10,000 came up was the real estate agents asked for this. And the real estate agents asked for this because we don't have the staffing. And given the numbers, as you know, we got a lot more resales now than we did. We don't have the staffing to turn around the inspection process to close escrows in 30 days. So the issue is escrows that want to close in 30 days. If you're a realtor or a broker and you come in and say, hey, we're closing in 60 days, we're closing in 45 days, we don't need the $10,000 deposit because we can clear out everything on our books and make sure all the payments are made. It's people that want to close 30 days or less. We don't have the turnaround ability. So that's why the 10,000 hold is there. Escrow closes, people get paid. The 10,000 is just to ensure that there's not a damage restoration issue or a manner alteration issue or you didn't pay your last assessment issue. All of those, that's what the 10,000 is for, is just to ensure that you, United, don't lose money on closing a quick escrow. And we are getting down lower and lower and lower in our turnaround time. So if you'll send me those emails, I will check, but we're not getting that type of numbers. It's getting down really, really low with regards to non-30-day escrows. Again, if it's a 30-day escrow, we got to hold the $10,000 in order to ensure that you're not left on the hook. If it's beyond that, if somebody's coming in with a normal 60, 45-day, we don't need the $10,000 deposit any longer.
Mr. Parker, regarding to issue that you mentioned, first of all, if you, I recommended in the past to read the group. One of them actually very clearly said in the group, you can respond to that in the letter next week. Another is you are just mentioning that if it is 45 days, we don't need to do anything. I personally receive after 3 months, 2.5 months, my money back. So people staying 3 months until they get their own money back. What is that reason, that period of time? And number 3, everywhere that we are complaining something, we heard something. We are short in staff. Just NEDA says we are short in staff. This is we are short in the staff. I mean,
okay.
You cannot find anybody to work for VMS?
That's correct.
Just real quick, I do want to respond. Number one, I know your instance, but if you have new instances where they're getting past the 45 days, will you directly let me know? Because I don't have any record of that. My staff saying we're clearing them all by 45 days. So I don't know the inconsistency that you're talking about, Azar. So if you can provide that for me, I'll take care of it. And with regards to the staffing and the other statement that Sue was making, what happened was when the malware scenario went down, we have a lot of data that has to be collected to make sure that that damage restoration has been paid for, that damage restoration has been taken care of before we can do a release. And that has taken, and we have got backlog, and damage restoration was down 3 or 4 staff people for a number of periods of time. Now we're getting them back, as Sue indicated, but we were down a lot of staff, and unfortunately the malware put us in a big hole too. But
thank you.
any case that you have, I can take care of it. We don't have any stats to show that we're not getting it out.
Just respond in the group so they can see your response.
Okay, thank you, Azar. Reza?
We will.
I have one question and one comment. My question is, the 4 vacancies we have, whose terms are finishing?
I'm sorry, Reza, could you repeat that question?
Okay, the 4 vacancies in the board are Sue, Carl, Elsie, and Diane. will be leaving the board. Some may reapply, but those are the four people that their terms are up.
Yeah, and my comment is about alteration definition. You see, this has been a point of contention because I give you two examples. Somebody makes an alteration, let's say, and changes the sink, but the garbage disposal is the same garbage disposal. And from VMS, they come and they look at the sink and they say, this is alteration. We're not going to change the garbage disposal. This is not right. We have to define this clearly in board, I mean. And the other example I can give you, a toilet bowl broke. You change the toilet bowl, but the internals are the same. When stopper doesn't work, they come over there and say, this is an alteration toilet. All I'm trying to point out is that this has to be defined clearly. What is alteration and what is the extent of services that has to be given, so that there won't be any point of contention and dissatisfaction by the business.
This needs to be taken up in the alterations committee. Please bring it to Brian's attention. Diane?
The past.
Okay, go ahead, Reza. You got muted.
This was regarding the definition that has applied in past. It's not something new to go to the alteration. It's basically M&C problem.
Okay, we will then bring it to the M&C committee, please. Diane?
Yeah, just no comments, but just an overall good meeting. And sorry about that disaster. I was looking into, if it was on my calendar, because I guess the 5 weeks. So anyway, I'm sorry I didn't have a report.
Okay, Brian? Carl?
Yeah, no comment from.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Brian.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Carl?
I got a couple of things. One is the fact that to respond to Reza, at an alterations committee meeting, before a couple of years ago, the issue came up with regard to the fact that if they needed to do something whereby it was adjacent to a alteration, they weren't going to do it because it was considered an alteration. And we had changed that so that if they come into the house, we give them a release, meaning the VMS person is given a release that if it has something to do with adjacent, like the stove is there, but it's inside of a cabinet that was done by an alteration. If we give them a release that they'll be they don't have to worry about the fact that if they screw up the cabinet, they can still fix the oven, because that was really ridiculous. And that's the same thing with regard to what Reza said here, with regard to the fact that you have a new sink, but the garbage disposal is the old garbage disposal. As long as we give them a release to, they have to obviously make sure that they're not going to screw up your sink, but if they have to do something with the garbage disposal, I believe that's what the rule is today, unless it's changed. So that's something that Brian and I and other people on the committee need to address. But I think that was the rule, The other thing right now, there's two other things. One is the fact that I just want to let everybody know, and this is what Jeff had indicated, that we're possibly going into the yellow or the green, as far as Orange County is concerned. I don't know about herd community in Orange County, because my wife, who is not 65 yet, she's just shy, she wasn't able to go to get the vaccinations when we gave them here, so we had to go to get the Moderna vaccination at Anaheim Convention Center 4 weeks ago. Yesterday was her 4-week time period to get her second shot, and we went there. The first time we went there 4 weeks ago, the place was jammed. There was tremendous amounts of people. Yesterday, there was 30 or 40 tables that were empty, where people were waiting for people to show up to get vaccinated. Nobody understood why there was nobody there yesterday. So I don't know if that's a foreboding of the fact that people are not going to get their second shot or what have you, but that's food for thought. And then the last thing, wanted to mention, Shaban, please, can you have Chuck send me the link for the Zoom? Because somehow or another, every once in a while, and I told you this before when we were having that other meeting where Robbie was having a similar problem, our camera, my camera, and then his camera, doesn't seem to want to work, yet on other occasions it works for other Zoom meetings. So I don't know what the story is. So I'm thinking that maybe that the program got corrupted, and I need a new link for that so that I can uninstall and install it or something. Thank you.
Okay. Siobhan, Andre and then Siobhan. Siobhan, do you want to talk? You had 11E or something? Okay. Andre.
Yes, during the landscape committee meeting, there's a talk about last year we have 8,844 complaints a year. That's 170 complaints a week, 34 a day, every working day. I don't think that's a good number, that the KPI that we need to maintain, even though it's less than 2019. It's still way too much. I would like to see no more than 10 a day and continuously reducing. The reason I'm talking about it is that this ticket issue is taking a lot of our resources, our staff shortage. If we don't have too many complaints, we can use a lot of our staff to provide better services, and we don't have to do them over and over again. Okay, so that's the issue that we need to really focus on, is how to reduce these complaints, resident services complaints coming from them. It takes their time, it reduces their customer satisfaction, costs dissatisfaction on them, and it costs our extra work. So I will hope that VMS will pay more attention to the reduced tickets. 8,844 tickets last year. If we can reduce to 2,000, I am sure you will find a lot of time to work on other issues. You don't, even if we have staff shortage, that's what I'm looking at. And also we have a lot of self-inflicted wound, like malware causing the problems, and alteration extent definitions. That's like Reza mentioned. Okay, so that's my comment, and I hope that. And also, one issue is about the training. We don't just throw money and then send them to class, and we don't expect any result. We should expect any kind of best practice bring back. This year they go in there, they must be the best practice that people are talking about. Bring it back, give them the opportunity. And Sylvain has mentioned there's a staff feel underutilized. This will be a great way to reward them and say, you go to the class, we will reward you, and help us to establish a best standard of practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will break till 12:45.
I'm sorry. Can I walk back on? I know I said I didn't have any comment, but I do. I was just wondering if Director Azara wanted to apologize to Director Armendariz. Maybe that was just a joke about how old he was, but it sounded like you were mocking him because of his age, and I'm sure you wouldn't do that consciously, but at what point are we too old to be on this board? Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll go with
that.
Elsie.
I appreciate that.
All right, we're
No,
going to
I apologize. He is interrupting everyone, Elsie. I said I respect him because of he's older than me. That's all I said. I respect even anybody be one day older than me. And this is my culture.
Thank you, everybody. We will come back together at 12:45 for the closed session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.